Honestly, I've not been looking at anyone's bum on the internet. No, I don't know anyone called Al. Today I'm talking about album. Oh, now I see. It's hashtag Susan album party all over again. All that confusion aside, I'm going to be asking an age-old question. Can you write, record and release an album in a month? First, a big shout out to Hummer Hummer. Not only was he the first person to buy Something for the Weekend from Bandcamp, but he was also the first person to buy Test Space too. Really appreciated. It means a lot. So, how would I know if you can write, record and release an album using only hardware in a month? Well, in February, that's exactly what I tried to do. And I'm going to tell you why, how, and what you might need to know if you were going to do this yourself. I started this project when I came across a post on Reddit which asked if anybody else was taking part in the RPM album in a month challenge. Being the idiot that I am and easily persuaded, I looked it up and thought, yes, an album in the month of February. That sounds like something I could do. The idea is not necessarily to create the most amazing album ever written. The idea is to actually get something released and written by the end of the month. It is really easy for us hobby musicians to get drawn into the world of synthesizers and messing around with new bits of tech and nice sequences and playing with things, and never to actually get any music finished. Just fuel our gas. And it's fun looking at new gear and trying new things out and playing around with stuff. But the whole point of making music is to do just that, make music. And there's no point in making music if nobody actually listens to it. So having a deadline for a release can act as a powerful incentive to actually finish some stuff. I already had some ideas and had been thinking about making another album. In fact, I'd put a shout out on Twitter, and one of my friends had come back and suggested a theme for me, space. And because of that, I had just downloaded all of the free NASA samples that there are that you can use in your works, free and gratis. Here is where it gets a bit more technical, and I'll lay out what my approach was and the way that I thought I was going to work things out, and then tell you a little bit about what went wrong. In my head, I had planned out that I was going to spend the first week writing stuff, so just working out patterns and tunes, and the next week I was going to spend recording, so just recording different takes of the tunes that I'd written in the first week. My third week I was going to listen to what I had recorded, decide which of the takes I was going to use, and then maybe do a bit of mastering and think about a run order, which would leave me the final week making that final decision, getting the track order in place, doing the album art and making sure everything was mastered and ready to go. If you've watched my channel before, you will know that I used the tracks and the samples quite a lot. In fact, they're the core of my setup. So I was going to do exactly the same here. I was going to use the tracks to lay down the basics and the central core of each of the tunes, and then use the samples to add atmosphere, a little bit of melody, and of course the NASA samples that I had downloaded. I already had a few patterns on the tracks which I could then work on and make into something a little bit more useful. I didn't figure this was cheating, as they weren't really finished tracks, so I was starting work in February really. I like to use the tracks for being the core to a tune, because it's so fast and easy to work with. And even though it's very loop based, you've got enough variation in there using the probability settings to make it so there's some kind of variety to the tracks. I also like it because the project layout makes me think in terms of 8. So for an album or a live set, I've got 8 almost columns of tracks that I can use. Remember, everything I produce is mixed and arranged live with one take. So if I want changes, I have to go and make a variety of different takes. This is where things got a bit messy. I had finished the basic tracks using the tracks, and I went to boot up my samples to add the next layer of sounds on there, and it died. What I had on the tracks was okay, but it wasn't really enough for me to consider a completed work, and it didn't have any of the NASA samples on there. So everything stopped. Luckily, I had already ordered an MC101 as part of this year's planned studio upgrade setup, and I'll talk more about the 101 on a future video. A week after the samples died, the 101 arrived, and I had to try and work out how I was going to integrate it into my workflow. To be honest though, all groove boxes with sampling capabilities have the same basics that they can do. So once I had learnt those, how to load samples on and how to get them to trigger according to a sequence, it was quite easy to use just those basics to integrate into a workflow that I already had when I used the samples. So having missed a week, I got back to work and I started a new layer of sounds over the tunes that I had already worked out on the tracks. Of course, having missed that week, I had to compress time, so I pretty much spent a whole weekend doing nothing but writing and then quickly recording takes of tunes. Now came the next stage, listening back to those takes that I had done. I like to listen to the music I produce in different environments, so I will listen back to them in the studio, but quite often I will go and stick them on a stick and listen to them in my car. When you listen back, not in the heat of doing the mixing, you can hear where different elements might need a little bit of tweaking and a little bit more balancing, and that involves going back and re-recording again. Luckily for me, most of the takes that I did were okay. Only a few needed me to go back and re-record them. By this time I had less than a week left before the end of February, and the final weekend of February I was quite busy, so I had a very limited amount of time. So it was panic stations and rushing through stuff as much as I could. I did a half-assed job of mastering, tried to work out what I thought was a reasonable playing order, and then I had to go at producing some album art. By the Saturday of the last weekend in February, I had managed to get everything done, and I uploaded to Bandcamp, and that was it. Big tick, job done, I made it. So, can you record an album in a month just on hardware? Well, yes, you can. But I would not have been able to do this on streaming services like Spotify or Apple Music or Amazon Music, mainly because it takes a while for those streaming services to catch up with stuff that's uploaded. For example, when I released something for the weekend, it took about 3 weeks from my upload to DistroKid for the album to appear on Spotify. With Bandcamp, it's pretty much instant. You upload the music and it's there for people to pick up. I think that's one of the many reasons why I prefer Bandcamp as a distribution method. I just feel like I've got that bit more control. The other thing that would be tricky if this was the first album that you released and you wanted to have some kind of guide as to how it was performing across a wide range of streaming platforms, and you wish to collect revenue from payments, would be that you needed an ISRC number to assign to each track. To assign ISRC numbers, you need to be a member of the PRS, or the Performing Rights Society, and that can take about a month or so in order to get your membership through and get into a position where you can produce your own ISRC numbers. One of the other things that I had on my side was that I am quite familiar with my kit, and even though the MC101 was new, because it does the same basic job on a very fundamental level as the samples did, it was quite easy to integrate into my setup. I'm beginning to discover some more really quite interesting and useful tricks on the MC101, but I didn't really need them when I was making this. Without having this familiarity, I think it would have been a bit more tricky to actually produce something. Still, the job was done, and Test Space, the album, is out now on Bandcamp, so go and grab a copy. I may release it on Spotify and some of the other streaming services if I can get round to it and I can be bothered, really. Like, subscribe, and in the words of the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation, share and enjoy. Bye kids!